Welcome to Mystic Wonders. We are proud to bring you classic audios from the collection of Agatha Christie's famous novels.
Welcome to Nocturnal Tales. But first, if we may impose ever so gently, we have a humble request for those who feel so inclined. Would you kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel? And, if it pleases you, do drop a note in the comments to share from which corner of the globe you're tuning into our tale. It's a delight to imagine our story reaching you there. Now, let us board the SS Atlantica and uncover what mysteries await. Chapter 1. The Voyage Begins. The SS Atlantica sliced through the dark Atlantic waters, a triumph of elegance and engineering. Its grand ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, their light dancing across polished brass railings and mahogany paneling. Passengers adorned in silks and tuxedos mingled beneath the opulent glow, their laughter and the clink of champagne glasses filling the air. It was a scene of unrestrained luxury, a floating microcosm of wealth and ambition. Seated at a small table near the edge of the room, a diminutive man with a meticulously waxed moustache surveyed the spectacle. Hercule Poirot, the celebrated Belgian detective, had embarked on this voyage seeking a rare moment of repose. Yet rest did not come easily to a mind so attuned to the nuances of human nature. His sharp eyes darted from face to face, noting the tilt of a head, the flicker of a smile, the shadow of unease beneath polished facades. At the captain's table, Lady Vanessa Worthington held court with the poise of a queen. Her emerald silk gown shimmered as she gestured, her pearls catching the light like tiny moons. Beside her sat Sir Reginald Worthington, her husband, a man whose broad shoulders and easy charm masked a certain restlessness. Poirot observed the faint tremor in Reginald's hand as he lifted his wine-glass, a detail too small for most to notice, but not for him. Nearby, Clarence Harrow, Vanessa's business partner, erupted into a boisterous laugh that rang hollow. His stout frame quivered with the effort, though his eyes, when they slid toward Vanessa, were cold and appraising. Across the room, Lady Eleanor Fairfax, a rival socialite, sat with her posture rigid, her gaze locked on Vanessa with a venom that belied her serene expression. Poirot leaned back slightly, intrigued. What threads of rivalry or resentment wove these lives together? The evening unfolded like a play, each interaction a line of dialogue rich with subtext. Vanessa's voice cut through the chatter as she addressed Reginald, her tone edged with steel. "You know perfectly well why that's impossible," she said sharply. "Don't push me, Reginald." His face reddened, but he offered no retort, instead summoning a waiter with a flick of his wrist. Moments later, Clarence leaned close to Vanessa, his voice a low rumble. "We must discuss the deal," he insisted. "There's still time to adjust the terms." Her reply was frigid. "My mind is made up, Clarence. Accept it." She turned away, leaving him to plaster a grin over his evident irritation. Poirot's attention shifted as Lady Eleanor approached Vanessa, her words laced with saccharine malice. "Vanessa, darling, how delightful to see you," she cooed. "I heard about your little spat with Reginald. Such a pity." Vanessa's smile was a brittle mask. "Eleanor, ever so thoughtful. Your concern is touching." The exchange crackled with unspoken history, a duel of wits laid bare for Poirot's scrutiny. The captain, a florid man with a booming laugh, approached Poirot with a warm greeting. "Monsieur Poirot, a privilege to have you aboard. Are you enjoying the Atlantica?" Poirot inclined his head, his smile courteous yet reserved. "The ship is magnificent, Captain, though I cannot help but sense a certain undercurrent among your guests." The captain's joviality faltered briefly. "Oh, you know these society folk," he said with a dismissive wave. "Always some intrigue brewing." Poirot nodded, unconvinced, his mind already sifting through the evening's impressions. As he savoured his coffee, Poirot caught a fleeting moment that piqued his curiosity. A waiter, moving with practised discretion, slipped a folded note to a passenger at a far table, a man who pocketed it swiftly, his eyes scanning the room. Curious, Poirot mused. What clandestine messages circulate here? Shortly after, Vanessa excused herself, gliding past Poirot's table. A hint of jasmine perfume trailed her, underscored by an odd metallic note that lingered in his senses. He frowned slightly, storing the observation away. The lights dimmed, and a chanteuse took the stage, her voice weaving a melancholy spell over the room. The passengers hushed, captivated, but Poirot's thoughts drifted elsewhere. A young couple exchanged adoring glances. An elderly man nodded off over his brandy, and in the shadows, a lone figure peered over a newspaper, his scrutiny of the room too deliberate to be casual. Was this the rumoured stowaway, or another piece in the puzzle? As the night wound down, Poirot retired to his stateroom, the ship's gentle sway a backdrop to his reflections. The SS Atlantica, isolated on the vast ocean, was a perfect crucible for secrets to simmer. Pausing in the corridor, he thought he heard a faint footfall behind him. He turned, but the passage lay empty, its shadows still. "You grow fanciful, Hercule." He chided himself softly. "This is a holiday, nothing more." Yet the prickle of unease persisted, a whisper that all was not as it seemed. In his cabin, Poirot stood at the porthole, gazing at the endless sea. The passengers of the Atlantica carried more than luggage. They bore the weight of hidden motives, poised to unravel in the days ahead. He sensed it, as surely as he felt the ship's pulse beneath his feet. Trouble, it seemed, had followed him aboard. Chapter 2. The Crime. The morning sun bathed the SS Atlantica in a golden glow, its rays dancing across the endless Atlantic. Inside the grand dining room, passengers savoured their coffee and murmured polite conversation, oblivious to the tragedy lurking just beyond the polished oak doors. At precisely 8 o'clock, Jenkins, the first-class steward, knocked gently on Lady Vanessa Worthington's stateroom door. She had requested her breakfast tray at this hour, and Lady Vanessa was nothing if not punctual. No answer came. He knocked again, more firmly, but the silence persisted. A flicker of unease stirred in his chest. "Milady," Jenkins ventured, his voice wavering. "Your breakfast, ma'am." Still nothing. With a hesitant breath, he turned the handle. The door swung open, unlocked. Stepping inside, he stopped dead. Lady Vanessa lay sprawled across the bed, her emerald gown tangled about her legs, her face a ghastly white. A silk scarf, the same one she'd worn at dinner, was knotted tightly around her neck. Her wide, unseeing eyes stared upward, frozen in a silent plea. Jenkins staggered back, the tray slipping from his hands and crashing to the floor. "Captain!" he choked out, though no one heard. "Oh, God, Captain!" Within minutes, Captain Hargrove stood framed in the doorway, his weathered face paling as he absorbed the scene. A soldier's discipline held him steady, but his trembling hands betrayed him as he reached for the intercom. "Get me Hercule Poirot," he barked. "Now!" Poirot arrived with his characteristic briskness, his diminutive figure radiating quiet authority. His sharp eyes swept the room, cataloguing every detail: the overturned chair, the shattered vase on the floor, the faint whiff of jasmine clinging to the air. A story of violence lay before him, etched in the disarray. "Mon Dieu," he murmured, approaching the bed. He studied the scarf's cruel grip, the faint bruises blooming beneath it. She resisted, yes, but briefly. The killer was swift and precise. Captain Hargrove shifted uneasily behind him. "Who could have done this, Monsieur Poirot? We're days from shore. A murderer is aboard. Poirot raised a hand for silence, his attention snagging on a slip of paper atop the dresser. He lifted it with care, noting the elegant yet hurried script. You can't hide forever. The handwriting seemed familiar, perhaps matching Vanessa's own, but he couldn't be sure without comparison. A threat, perhaps, or a message meant for another. Poirot tucked the note into his pocket, resolving to examine it further. His gaze shifted to the porthole, slightly ajar, offering a view of the boundless sea. Curious, he mused. The night was cool. Why leave it open? Dr. Finch, the ship's wiry physician, bustled in to examine the body. After a cursory inspection, he rose, his expression dour. Strangulation, no question. Death occurred between 11 and 1 last night, I'd estimate. Poirot nodded, his thoughts racing. He recalled the faint sound of footsteps near midnight, the shadowy figure he'd glimpsed in the corridor. And the door, Captain, was it locked when you arrived? No, Hargrove replied. Jenkins found it unlocked. Most interesting, Poirot said, his eyes narrowing. Lady Vanessa, I am told, always locked her door at night. Before Hargrove could respond, a cry pierced the air. Sir Reginald Worthington shoved past the steward, his face a mask of anguish. "Vanessa!" he shouted, lunging toward the bed. "Oh, God, no!" Poirot intercepted him, his grip gentle but firm. "Monsieur, my deepest sympathies, but you must not disturb the scene." Sir Reginald collapsed into a chair, head in hands, his voice a broken whisper. Who would do this? Yet Poirot noted the dry eyes, the absence of tears. Word of the murder spread like wildfire, drawing passengers to the dining room. Clarence Harrow clutched his coffee cup, knuckles white, staring blankly ahead. Lady Eleanor Fairfax sank dramatically into a seat, though her keen gaze missed nothing. The young couple from dinner huddled together, whispering, while an elderly gentleman tapped his fingers thoughtfully on his armrest. As he turned to leave the stateroom, Poirot's eyes caught a faint mark on the carpet near the door. A partial footprint, too small for a man's shoe, too large for Lady Vanessa's dainty slippers. A woman's heel, or a cunning ruse. Stepping into the corridor, he closed the door behind him. The note, the porthole, the cigarette, the footprint. These were fragments of a puzzle, tantalizing and elusive. But Hercule Poirot thrived on such challenges, and he knew that with time and observation the truth would reveal itself. Chapter 3. The First Suspicions. The SS Atlantica sliced through the Atlantic's restless waves, its grand decks now hushed under the weight of tragedy. In the captain's private office, Hercule Poirot sat poised with a small notebook, his keen gaze resting on Sir Reginald Worthington, the grieving widower, or so he claimed. The man's tailored suit was impeccable, but his hands betrayed a faint tremor as they clutched a handkerchief. "I cannot fathom it," Sir Reginald murmured, his voice rough with strain. "Who could have done this to my Vanessa?" Poirot tilted his head, his moustache quivering faintly. "That, monsieur, is precisely what I shall uncover. Tell me, when did you last see Madame alive?" "After dinner last night," Sir Reginald replied, pressing the handkerchief to his eyes. Eyes, Poirot noted, that remained curiously dry. "She was weary and wished to retire. I lingered in the saloon for a brandy with Clarence Harrow. Vanessa never cared for late evenings." "And you did not check on her before you slept?" Poirot's tone was soft, yet probing. "No, I assumed she was resting. Her door was locked when I returned to our suite. I took the adjoining cabin." Sir Reginald paused, then added, "She often locked her door for privacy. It was her way." Poirot's pencil scratched a brief note. A locked door, consistent with his earlier inspection of the crime scene. "And you heard nothing? No cry, no sound of distress?" "Nothing," Sir Reginald said, his voice firm, though his eyes darted briefly to the floor. Curieux, Poirot mused. The man's demeanour was too polished, too controlled. He nodded courteously. Merci, Sir Reginald. That will suffice for now. Next came Clarence Harrow, Lady Vanessa's business partner. He strode in with a confident air, though Poirot noted a fresh bandage wrapped around his left hand, the white gauze stark against his dark suit. A flicker of a smirk crossed Harrow's lips before he masked it with a sombre frown. "A dreadful loss," Harrow said, settling into the chair. "Vanessa was sharp as a tack. We didn't always see eye to eye, but I admired her." "Did not see eye to eye?" Poirot echoed, his eyes sharpening. "Explain, if you please." Harrow shrugged, his bandaged hand resting on the armrest. "Business squabbles. She pushed for risky ventures, new shipping routes, untested markets. I favoured stability. We clashed over it yesterday before dinner." "And after dinner?" Poirot asked. "Had a drink with Sir Reginald, then turned in. Around 11, I'd say. Didn't see Vanessa after she left the dining room." Poirot nodded, recalling the faint sound of footsteps he'd heard near midnight. "And you heard nothing unusual?" "Not a sound," Harrow replied, crossing his arms. Yet Poirot caught a fleeting clench in the man's jaw. A telltale sign, perhaps. The third interviewee was Lady Eleanor Fairfax, Vanessa's rival. She entered in a swirl of lavender scent, her silk scarf, eerily similar to the murder weapon, draped gracefully over her shoulders. Poirot's gaze lingered on it as she took her seat. "Monstrous!" she exclaimed, her voice trembling with indignation. "Vanessa and I had our quarrels, but murder, it's beyond comprehension." "Quarrels?" Poirot inquired, leaning forward. "She snatched a contract from me last year, a lucrative one," Lady Eleanor said, her tone bitter. "I won't deny I resented her, but I didn't want her dead." "Your movements last night, madame?" "I played cards in the lounge with Mrs. Pennington until 10:30, then retired, slept soundly until this morning's awful news." Poirot tapped his pencil thoughtfully. "That scarf you wear, it resembles the one found on Lady Vanessa. A striking coincidence, non?" Lady Eleanor's hand flew to her throat, her poise wavering. "It's a common style. I've owned mine for years. Are you implying—" "I imply nothing," Poirot said with a placid smile. "I observe." When she left, Poirot sat in silence, his mind assembling the puzzle's pieces. Sir Reginald's tearless grief and convenient alibi, Harrow's business friction, subtle unease, and bandaged hand, Lady Eleanor's scarf and lingering grudge. Each had motive, each had opportunity. Yet the stateroom's clues, the scrawled note, the signs of struggle, the open porthole, hinted at a broader tapestry. As Poirot stepped out of the captain's office, he paused in the corridor, his mind sifting through the suspect's words. A soft murmur drew his attention to the nearby lounge, where Lady Eleanor Fairfax sat, her composure fraying. She dabbed at her eyes with a delicate handkerchief, then, in a moment of distraction, let it slip to the floor. Clarence Harrow, who had been lingering by the bar, moved swiftly. He bent to retrieve the cloth, but instead of returning it, he tucked it into his pocket with a furtive glance. Poirot's eyes narrowed slightly, but he said nothing, merely filing the observation away. A knock broke his concentration. The captain stepped in, his face taut. "Monsieur Poirot, the steward, Jenkins, insists on speaking with you. Says he's recalled something." "Send him in," Poirot said, straightening. Jenkins entered, cap in hand, his nervous fingers twisting the brim. "Sir, I didn't mention it before, but last night on my rounds I saw something queer. Near midnight, by Lady Vanessa's cabin, there was a man lurking. Couldn't make out his face, too shadowy, but he was smoking. Dropped his cigarette when he spotted me and bolted." Poirot's pulse quickened. "A cigarette. Did you keep it?" Jenkins nodded, fishing a crumpled stub from his pocket. "Thought it might matter." Poirot took it, noting the gold band encircling the filter, a brand he'd seen in Clarence Harrow's silver case. "Très bien, Jenkins. You have been most helpful." Alone again, Poirot leaned back, his little grey cells humming. The midnight figure, the cigarette, the scarf, all threads in a cunning weave. The killer was shrewd, but not infallible. Aboard this floating prison, the truth crouched, waiting to be seized. He stood, resolve hardening. The game had begun, and Hercule Poirot would unravel it, strand by meticulous strand. Chapter 4. A Hidden Truth. The afternoon sun streamed through the porthole of Lady Vanessa Worthington's stateroom, casting a golden sheen over the scene of the previous night's tragedy. Hercule Poirot stood by the ornate dresser, his gloved hands methodically examining each item with the precision of a watchmaker. Captain Hargrove lingered near the doorway, his brow furrowed with concern. "Do you believe the killer left something behind, Monsieur Poirot?" the captain asked, his voice low. Poirot's eyes twinkled as he glanced up. "Always, mon ami. The criminal mind is clever, but never flawless. There is always a trace, a whisper of the truth." His fingers brushed over the velvet lining of Vanessa's jewelry box, its glittering contents untouched by the chaos. With a delicate touch, Poirot pressed the base, and a soft click echoed through the room. A false bottom sprang open, revealing a folded letter and a small photograph. "Ah, voilà," Poirot murmured, his moustache twitching with satisfaction. "The lady had her secrets, it seems." Captain Hargrove stepped closer, peering over Poirot's shoulder. "What is it?" Poirot unfolded the letter carefully. The handwriting was sharp and elegant, the message chillingly brief. "Pay what you owe, or the world will know your shame. You can't hide forever." It was unsigned, the paper crisp as though recently penned. Poirot's brow furrowed as he studied the script. It seemed familiar, perhaps matching Vanessa's own hand, though he would need to compare it to confirm. Is this a threat to her or from her? Poirot wondered. The phrasing is ambiguous. Pay what you owe could be a demand she received or one she made. He tucked the letter into his pocket, resolving to investigate further. Turning his attention to the photograph, Poirot noted it depicted Vanessa standing beside a man in a dimly lit café, their faces turned toward each other in what appeared to be an intimate conversation. The man's features were obscured by shadow, but Poirot's sharp eyes caught a distinctive detail, a cufflink shaped like a lion's head glinting on his sleeve. Interesting, he thought, filing the observation away. Who is he? Hargrove wondered aloud. Perhaps a lover, or an accomplice, Poirot replied, his mind already racing. Or maybe the subject of the letter. We must tread carefully, Captain. This secret may be the key to her murder. He slipped the photograph into his pocket alongside the letter, his expression thoughtful. For now, we shall keep this between us. The killer must not know what we have found. Leaving the stateroom, Poirot's thoughts turned to another clue. The faint footprint near the door, too small for a man's shoe, too large for Lady Vanessa's delicate slippers. A woman's heel, perhaps, he mused. Or a deliberate misdirection by the killer to cast suspicion elsewhere. The possibilities swirled in his mind, each one a thread in the tangled web of the case. In the ship's lounge, Poirot discreetly requested a list of female passengers and crew members from the purser. As he scanned the names, one stood out. Lady Eleanor Fairfax. Her rivalry with Vanessa was well known, and her shoe size, he recalled from a passing glance, could match the print. But so did several others, including the ship's head stewardess and a young newlywed. too many possibilities, Poirot thought, tapping his pencil against the list. He needed more. Later, as he strolled the deck, Poirot's keen eyes caught a glimpse of Lady Eleanor in a secluded corner, her voice hushed but urgent as she spoke to Sir Reginald Worthington. Their postures were tense, their words clipped. "You promised me," Lady Eleanor hissed, her fingers gripping Sir Reginald's sleeve. "Not here. Not now." Sir Reginald's face was a mask of frustration. "I can't control everything, Eleanor. Poirot is sniffing around. He'll find out." Poirot edged closer, feigning interest in the horizon, but their voices dropped to whispers, and he caught only fragments. The money, if he knows. Then, with a sharp glance around, they parted, each disappearing down separate corridors. "The plot thickens," Poirot mused, stroking his moustache. "What binds these two? A shared secret, or something more sinister?" Returning to his cabin, Poirot poured himself a tisane, the steam curling lazily in the air as he settled into an armchair. His little grey cells hummed with activity, piecing together the day's discoveries, the ambiguous letter, the photograph with its distinctive cufflink, the footprint, and now this clandestine meeting between Sir Reginald and Lady Eleanor. He sipped his tea, his eyes narrowing. Lady Vanessa was not the saintly heiress she appeared to be, he murmured to himself. She had enemies, yes, but also secrets that others wished to keep buried. The question is, which secret cost her her life? The letter suggested a motive rooted in shame or scandal, but its authorship remained unclear. The photograph hinted at a personal betrayal, perhaps an affair that threatened reputations or fortunes. And the footprint, could it belong to Lady Eleanor? Or was it a clever ruse to cast suspicion elsewhere? Poirot set down his cup, his resolve hardening. "No matter," he said softly. "Hercule Poirot shall uncover the truth, thread by meticulous thread." As the ship sailed onward into the gathering dusk, the mystery deepened, its shadows lengthening like the waves trailing behind. The killer was close, perhaps closer than anyone realized, and Poirot knew that time was of the essence. Chapter 5. A Whisper in the Dark. The SS Atlantica's grand lounge shimmered with decadence, its velvet drapes framing the vast dark windows that reflected the restless Atlantic beyond. Chandeliers cast a golden glow over the passengers, yet the air was thick with unease. The murder of Lady Vanessa Worthington had woven a thread of suspicion through the ship, and every glance seemed to carry a question or an accusation. Hercule Poirot sat in a plush armchair near the crackling fireplace, his slight figure dwarfed by the luxurious surroundings. He cradled a steaming tisane, his keen eyes darting over the room. A young newlywed couple whispered anxiously on a settee, their hands entwined. Mr. Pennington, an elderly passenger with a drooping monocle, nodded off in a corner. And near the bar, Miss Clara, the head stewardess, glided between tables, her movements precise but her expression taut. Poirot's gaze lingered on her. She had been on duty the night Lady Vanessa died, and he recalled a detail from the crime scene, a footprint in the stateroom that matched her shoe size. Intriguing, he thought, but not yet conclusive. As if drawn by his stare, Miss Clara approached. "Monsieur Poirot, is there anything I can do for you?" Her voice was steady, but her fingers betrayed her, twisting together nervously. Poirot offered a disarming smile. "You are most attentive, Mademoiselle Clara. Tell me, on the night of the tragedy, did you observe anything unusual? A sound, perhaps, or a shadow out of place?" Her lips pressed into a thin line. "I was busy with the linen, sir, but—" She hesitated, then leaned in, her voice dropping to a hush. "Around midnight I heard a door slam near the first-class suites, and then a faint cry, maybe. It was so fleeting I wasn't sure it was real." Poirot's eyes sparkled with interest. "A cry, you say? From which direction?" "Toward Lady Vanessa's cabin, I think." She fidgeted with her apron. "But the ship creaks and groans all night. It could have been nothing." "Merci, mademoiselle," Poirot said warmly. "Even the smallest whisper can speak volumes." As she hurried away, he filed her words away. A slammed door, a cry, details that matched the timeline of the murder. But who had been in that corridor? That evening, Poirot summoned Mr. Clarence Harrow to the ship's library, a sanctuary of dark wood and leather-bound volumes. Harrow strode in, his confidence tinged with irritation, and sank into a chair across from Poirot. Poirot noted the bandage on Harrow's left hand, the same one he had observed during their earlier encounter, when Harrow had clutched it after a minor altercation. "I hope this is brief, Monsieur Poirot," Harrow said, crossing his arms. "I've matters to attend to." Poirot's smile was serene, but his tone carried an edge. "Even amidst murder, business calls. You are a man of focus, Monsieur Harrow." Harrow shifted uncomfortably, his bandaged hand resting on the armrest. "Vanessa's death is unfortunate, but I can't stop living." "Of course," Poirot steepled his fingers. "Tell me about your argument with Lady Vanessa the night before she died. A disagreement, I hear, over a risky investment." Harrow's eyes widened briefly before narrowing. "It was trivial. She wanted to fund a venture I thought foolish. We exchanged words, nothing more." "Trivial?" Poirot's voice sharpened. "Yet this venture involved a fortune, one that could have ruined you if it failed." Harrow's face flushed, and he winced slightly as he gripped the chair's arm with his injured hand. "What are you suggesting? I didn't kill her. I was in the saloon until 11, then my cabin, alone." "Alone," Poirot mused, his gaze unrelenting. "How unfortunate that no one can verify that." Harrow's jaw clenched, but before he could respond, a knock broke the tension. The door opened, revealing Mr. Jenkins, the purser, his face ashen. "Monsieur Poirot," Jenkins said, "I've found something you need to see." Poirot rose smoothly. "Show me, monsieur." In a shadowed corridor near the first-class suites, Jenkins pointed to an alcove. "I was checking supplies when I saw this." A faint smudge marred the wall, a partial handprint, blurred as if made in haste. Poirot bent to inspect it, his eyes narrowing. "Recent, I think, and regardez, traces of powder. Makeup, perhaps. A woman's touch." Jenkins nodded. "And there's more." He produced a small handkerchief, its delicate embroidery marred by a dark stain. Blood, Poirot suspected. The initials E.F. gleamed in gold thread. "Lady Eleanor Fairfax," Poirot murmured, taking the cloth. His mind flashed to the scene earlier that day in the lounge, when Harrow had pocketed the handkerchief after Lady Eleanor dropped it during a casual exchange. Curious indeed. Jenkins swallowed. "I thought you'd want to know, sir." "You were right," Poirot said. "This may be a key to our mystery." As Jenkins left, Poirot pocketed the handkerchief, his thoughts racing. A handprint, a bloodied cloth, evidence suggesting Lady Eleanor's presence near the crime scene. But was she the killer, or a pawn in a larger game? And how did her handkerchief come to bear blood? Harrow's blood, perhaps. Back in his cabin, Poirot paced before the porthole, the ocean stretching endlessly outside. Miss Clara's testimony, Harrow's weak alibi and bandaged hand, and now Lady Eleanor's handkerchief swirled in his thoughts. The pieces were scattered, refusing to align. He paused, staring into the night. "The murderer is cunning," he said softly, "but not flawless. There is always a trace, a misstep." A sudden idea flared, The photograph from Vanessa's jewelry box, the man in the cafe with the lion's head cufflink, could he be aboard, disguised among them? Or was he a spectre from her past, irrelevant to the present? "No," Poirot declared, turning from the window. "The truth is here, on this ship, and I, Hercule Poirot, will uncover it." With that resolve, he extinguished the lamp, the darkness cloaking him as the whispers of the mystery lingered in the air. Chapter 6. The Stowaway's Secret. The SS Atlantica's lower decks were a stark contrast to the opulence above. In the cargo hold, the air was thick with the tang of oil and sea salt, and the ship's metal walls groaned faintly with the ocean's rhythm. Hercule Poirot descended the narrow staircase, his polished shoes clicking sharply, accompanied by Captain Hargrove and two burly crewmen. A kitchen hand's hushed tip had led them here, to the shadowed corners where a stowaway reportedly hid. A sudden rustle broke the stillness as they approached a cluster of crates. Poirot raised a hand, signaling silence. At his nod, the crewmen pulled a figure from the gloom. A young man, clothes rumpled, face smudged with dirt, eyes darting nervously. "Monsieur," Poirot said calmly, his voice a soothing balm, "there is no need for fear. I am Hercule Poirot, and I seek only the truth. Your name?" The young man swallowed hard. "Thomas, sir. Thomas Wilkins." "And what brings you aboard this ship uninvited, Monsieur Wilkins?" "I was desperate," Thomas stammered. "Lost my job in London, had nowhere to go. I thought I'd sneak to America, start over." Poirot studied him closely. The boy's hands trembled, but his gaze was steady, a blend of dread and determination. "And do you know of Lady Vanessa Worthington's fate?" Thomas paled. "The murder? I heard the crew talking, but I swear I'm innocent." "Naturally," Poirot replied, his tone firm yet gentle. "But perhaps you witnessed something that night. Something useful to my investigation?" After a pause, Thomas nodded slowly. "I was on the promenade deck near midnight trying to think. I saw someone, a hooded figure in a dark coat, rushing from the first-class cabins. They dropped something small, maybe a case, as they passed under a light." Poirot's eyes sharpened. "Did you retrieve it?" "No, sir. I was too scared, but I can show you where." "Very well. Lead on, Monsieur Wilkins." Guided by Thomas, they climbed to the starboard deck. After a brief search near the lifeboats, Poirot spotted a metallic gleam beneath a folded canvas. He lifted a silver cigarette case, its surface etched with the initials CH, and beneath them a finer script, "To my beloved A from V." Poirot's brow creased slightly. C.H. Clarence Harrow, no doubt. But A? Who is this A? He filed the question away, focusing on the clue at hand. "Clarence Harrow," Captain Hargrove said, frowning. "Oui," Poirot agreed, turning the case in his gloved hands. "Monsieur Harrow insists he was in his cabin after 11. Yet this places him near the crime scene at midnight." "But how did it get here?" Hargrove asked. "An accident, perhaps," Poirot mused, "or a deliberate plant to mislead." Thomas shifted uneasily. "I don't know, sir. I just saw it fall." Poirot's thoughts circled back. "Monsieur Wilkins, did you ever overhear Lady Vanessa speaking to someone, perhaps using a particular name or endearment?" Thomas pondered, then nodded. "Once, in the corridor, I heard her whisper to someone, calling them my dear Amour. I figured it was a pet name." Amour. A for Amour, Poirot thought. A lover's pet name, perhaps. He kept this silent, merely inclining his head. "Merci, Monsieur Wilkins. You have been most helpful. Return to your quarters, but remain on the ship." Thomas nodded, relief flickering in his eyes, and slipped away. As Poirot and Hargrove returned to the upper decks, Poirot's mind raced. "We must tread carefully," Poirot told Hargrove. "If Harrow is guilty, he will be wary. If not, he may be a target." "I'll have him watched quietly," Hargrove replied. "Bon," Poirot said, "and I shall ponder this curious piece of the puzzle." They parted, leaving Poirot with his thoughts. The cigarette case, with its dual markings, hinted at hidden layers. The killer was close, and the web of deception was starting to unravel. Chapter 7. The Hidden Compartment. The SS Atlantica's library was a sanctuary of quiet sophistication, its walls lined with leather-bound volumes, and its air thick with the scent of polished wood and aged paper. Hercule Poirot, ever the seeker of truth, had chosen this secluded space for his next inquiry. The ship's opulence masked many secrets, and he was determined to uncover them one by one. Poirot moved methodically through the room, his sharp eyes scanning every surface. He paused before an antique writing desk, its intricate carvings gleaming under the soft light of a nearby lamp. A fine piece, he thought, but perhaps more than it seems. With a delicate touch, he ran his fingers along the desk's edges, feeling for hidden seams or irregularities. His persistence was rewarded when his thumb brushed against a small, nearly imperceptible catch beneath the drawer. A faint click echoed through the stillness, and a concealed compartment sprang open, revealing a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. Poirot's heart quickened. "Ah, mon ami," he mused, "what have we here?" He untied the ribbon and unfolded the first letter, his eyes narrowing as he read the elegant, looping script. "My dearest V, our time together is a stolen treasure, but I fear the cost. If our secret is discovered, it will ruin us both. Yet I cannot bear to let you go. Meet me in the usual place, and we shall decide our fate. Yours always, A." Poirot's moustache twitched with intrigue. A clandestine affair, he thought, and one fraught with danger. He flipped through the remaining letters, each more fervent than the last, though none bore a full name, only the initial A. But who is this A? Poirot wondered, his mind sifting through the ship's passenger list. Could it be Amelia Pennington, the reserved widow with a sharp tongue, or Arthur Worthington, Sir Reginald's distant cousin, who had been conspicuously quiet? Or perhaps someone less obvious, lurking in the shadows of suspicion? As he pondered, a faint noise broke the silence, a soft creak like the shifting of weight on the wooden floor. Poirot's senses sharpened. He slipped the letters into his pocket and turned slowly, his gaze sweeping the room. The library appeared empty, its shadows undisturbed, but Poirot knew better. "Is someone there?" he called, his voice steady but laced with warning. Silence answered him, yet the air seemed to hum with tension. Poirot stepped toward the door, his polished shoes tapping a deliberate rhythm. As he reached the threshold, he caught a fleeting glimpse of movement, a shadowy figure disappearing around the corner of the corridor. His pulse quickened. The killer watches, he realized, and grows bolder. Poirot hurried after the figure, but the corridor stretched empty before him, its polished floors gleaming under the dim lights. He paused, listening intently, but only the distant hum of the ship's engines met his ears. No matter, he thought, his resolve hardening. I am close, too close for their comfort. He returned to the library, his mind racing. The letters were a breakthrough, revealing Lady Vanessa's secret lover and a motive ripe with jealousy or betrayal. But the identity of A remained elusive, and the killer's surveillance suggested that time was running short. As Poirot extinguished the lamp and left the library, the ship's bell tolled, its somber tone echoing through the halls. The game was afoot, and the stakes had never been higher. Chapter 8. Shadows on the Deck. The S Atlantica pressed through a turbulent sea, its decks glistening under a relentless downpour. The sky hung heavy with grey clouds, and the rhythmic thud of waves against the hull underscored the storm's fury. Inside, the smoking room stood as an oasis of calm, its polished wood walls and plush leather armchairs glowing softly in the lamplight. Hercule Poirot sat at a small table, his keen eyes trained on the door, awaiting his next move in the intricate game of deduction. At exactly 2 o'clock, Mr. Pennington entered, his monocle swinging loosely from its chain, his steps faltering slightly. Dr. Finch followed, offering a curt nod, his medical bag clutched tightly under his arm. Poirot stood, his demeanour polite yet commanding. "Messieurs, I appreciate your presence," he said, motioning to the seats. "We have a serious matter to address." Pennington eased into a chair with a weary grunt. "Anything to assist, Monsieur Poirot? This affair has cast a shadow over us all." Dr. Finch remained on his feet, his face taut. "I've patients waiting. Let's make this quick." Poirot's lips curved into a faint smile. "It shall be brief. I seek only to confirm Monsieur Arthur Worthington's actions on the night Lady Vanessa met her end." Pennington adjusted his monocle, frowning. "We were at cards that night. Arthur, Finch, and myself. A round of whist, nothing more." "And how late did this game persist?" Poirot inquired. "Until 11:30, I'd say," Pennington answered. "I turned in soon after. The brandy had taken its toll." Poirot's gaze shifted to Dr. Finch. "And you, Doctor? Did you also depart then?" Finch paused, his fingers drumming against his bag. "I lingered a bit. Arthur and I talked until midnight or thereabouts." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Or thereabouts. I require precision, monsieur." Finch shifted his weight, unease flickering in his expression. "Well, to be exact, Arthur stepped out around 1:15 p.m. Said he wanted air. He was back in 10 minutes or so." "Did you see where he went?" Poirot pressed. "No," Finch admitted. "But when he returned, he was rattled, hands shaking, eyes darting to the door." "Did he speak of anything odd?" "Nothing," Finch said, "though I did catch him talking to someone in the corridor before he came back, a woman in a dark shawl. I couldn't see her face." Poirot's mind sparked. A woman, the same one Mrs. Hartley glimpsed near the scene. "Merci, Doctor. You have been most illuminating." As the two men left, Poirot pieced together the timeline. Arthur's absence from the smoking room coincided with the murder's window, and this mysterious woman added a fresh thread to the tapestry of intrigue. Next, Poirot returned to Vanessa's cabin, now locked under the captain's directive. The air still carried traces of jasmine, and was that lavender? He moved to the wardrobe, his gloved hands deftly searching her coats. Tucked in a hidden pocket, he discovered a torn slip of paper bearing the initials E.F. in hurried script. E.F., he pondered. Could it be Lady Eleanor Fairfax? Lady Eleanor Fairfax, a poised widow with a fondness for lavender perfume, had kept a low profile since the voyage began. Poirot recalled her subtle tension whenever Vanessa's name arose, a clue worth pursuing. He sought her out on the upper deck, where she sat beneath an awning, sipping tea as rain lashed the ship. She glanced up at his approach, her smile tight. "Monsieur Poirot," she greeted, lowering her cup. "What brings you into this storm?" "A pressing question, madame," he replied, settling across from her. "Where were you when Lady Vanessa died?" Her grip on the cup tightened. "In my cabin, reading. I retired early, as is my habit." Poirot's voice grew firm. "Yet a witness saw a woman like you near the first-class cabins at midnight, and this—" He slid the paper with E.F. into view. Lady Eleanor Fairfax's poise wavered. "That's mine, yes, but it's not what you assume. Vanessa and I were friends. She asked me to meet her that night, something private." "About what?" Poirot urged. "She feared her husband was unfaithful," Eleanor whispered. "She wanted my counsel. But when I reached her cabin, the door was open, and I heard voices, angry ones. I didn't go in." "Whose voices?" Poirot leaned in. "I couldn't tell. A man and a woman arguing over money, I think. I left, afraid of being seen." Poirot studied her, the tremor in her hands, the tear in her shawl, a match for fabric found near Vanessa's body. "You saw no one else?" "No," she insisted. "I dropped that note as I fled. It was a reminder of our meeting." Poirot nodded, though skepticism lingered. Her tale held water, but the torn shawl hinted at a closer encounter with the crime. Before he could dig deeper, a crewman rushed onto the deck, breathless. "Monsieur Poirot, the captain needs you. The ship's logbook's been stolen from his office." Poirot straightened. "Stolen? When?" "Found out this morning," the crewman said. "Captain Hargrove's furious. Thinks the killer's hiding something." "Merci, madame," Poirot said to Eleanor, rising. "We will continue this later." Following the crewman below, Poirot's thoughts churned. The logbook tracked passenger movements, a key to pinpointing who neared Vanessa's cabin that night. Its theft screamed desperation, a sign the murderer feared discovery. Who had the chance to take it? What truths did it conceal? The storm outside roared louder, echoing the chaos in Poirot's mind. The clues were scattered, but he vowed to assemble them before the ship docked, or the killer struck again. Chapter 9. The Forged Alibi. The SS Atlantica rocked gently on the waves as it neared the end of its voyage, but within Hercule Poirot's cramped cabin a storm of deduction brewed. His desk was a battlefield of evidence. The blackmail letter, the torn photograph, the blood-stained handkerchief, and pages of scribbled notes from his interrogations. Poirot's sharp eyes darted between them, his mind wrestling with the puzzle's elusive pieces. A sudden knock broke his focus. Jenkins, the steward, stood in the doorway, his face ashen. "Monsieur Poirot, I've just remembered something about the logbook theft." Poirot leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Proceed, Monsieur Jenkins. Omit nothing." Jenkins fidgeted with his cap. "Last night, while I was tidying the captain's office, I saw someone slip out just before the logbook disappeared. They wore a dark cloak, but I glimpsed a gold cufflink, a lion's head design." Poirot's breath caught. A lion's head. He recalled the photograph from Vanessa's stateroom, showing a man with the same distinctive cufflink, and he had noticed it glinting on Clarence Harrow's sleeve at dinner 2 nights prior. "Merci, Jenkins, you have given me a thread to pull." With this new lead, Poirot approached Captain Hargrove for permission to search the suspects' cabins. The captain, his brow creased with strain, nodded. "We dock in 2 days, Poirot. If the killer slips away, we're finished." "Rest assured, Captain," Poirot said with quiet confidence. "Hercule Poirot does not permit the guilty to vanish." In Clarence Harrow's cabin, Poirot worked methodically, his gloved hands probing every corner. Beneath a pile of ledgers detailing shipping investments, he uncovered a torn page, its edges jagged, its text incriminating. It was a fragment of the ship's logbook. The entries listed passenger movements on the night of Lady Vanessa's murder. Clarence Harrow had left his cabin at 11:45 p.m. and returned at 12:15 a.m., the exact window of the crime. Sir Reginald Worthington's name appeared too, absent from his suite between 11:30 p.m. and 1 a.m. Poirot frowned. 2 suspects, both unaccounted for. Yet something nagged at him. The handwriting on the torn page was stiff, lacking the effortless sweep of the official logbook's script. He pocketed the page and headed to the lounge, where Clarence Harrow sat, swirling a brandy with a tense grip. Poirot approached, his demeanour calm but piercing. "Monsieur Harrow," he said, "I have discovered something curious in your cabin." Harrow's glass paused mid-air. "You've no right to—" "The captain authorized it," Poirot cut in. "This logbook page places you near Vanessa's cabin when she died, yet you insisted you never left your room." Harrow's cheeks reddened. "I did step out, but not to kill her. I was meeting someone. A discreet business matter." "And this someone can vouch for you?" Poirot pressed. "No," Harrow admitted, his voice low. "It was private. But I didn't harm Vanessa. I loved her once." Poirot's eyes narrowed. "Then perhaps you heard something that night?" Harrow swallowed hard. "I passed her cabin and heard her arguing with Sir Reginald about money. He said he'd cut her off if she didn't stop spending. It sounded ugly." Money. A potent motive, Poirot thought. "And you withheld this why?" "I didn't want trouble," Harrow said. "But it's the truth. Reginald had reason to want her dead." Poirot inclined his head. "Very well, monsieur. Your words are noted." Back in his cabin, Poirot laid the torn page beside a sample of the official logbook, borrowed from the captain. His suspicion was correct. The handwriting was a forgery, careful but not perfect. The strokes betrayed an imitator's hand. Someone planted this, Poirot mused, to frame Harrow or to muddy the waters. Who could forge such a document? The purser, Mr. Billings, came to mind, a man of precision with access to the logbook, or perhaps a passenger with hidden talents. As the ship's horn blared, marking the fall of evening, Poirot felt the net tightening. The forged alibi was a clumsy move, and clumsiness bred exposure. He would find the true logbook, or its forger, and with it the murderer's name. Chapter 10. The Purser's Confession. In the quiet solitude of his cabin, Hercule Poirot sat hunched over his notes, the soft glow of the desk lamp casting shadows across the page. The forged logbook page lay before him, its deceitful entries mocking his efforts to uncover the truth behind Lady Vanessa Worthington's murder. Yet Poirot was not deterred. He knew that every lie concealed a kernel of reality, and it was his task, his duty to extract it. With a decisive nod, Poirot closed his notebook and stood. The purser, Mr. Billings, held the key to this forgery, a suspicion that had taken root in his mind since Poirot noted the man's nervous demeanour. It was time to confront him. Slipping on his coat, Poirot stepped into the corridor, the ship's gentle sway beneath his feet a constant reminder of their isolation on the vast ocean. As he made his way to the purser's office, Poirot passed Lady Eleanor Fairfax, who was engaged in a heated discussion with a fellow passenger near the lounge. Her sharp words cut through the air, and her flushed cheeks betrayed a woman under strain. Poirot filed the observation away, his little grey cells humming with possibilities, and continued on his path. Upon reaching the purser's office, Poirot knocked firmly. The door creaked open, and Mr. Billings appeared, his face paling at the sight of the diminutive detective. "Monsieur Poirot, what can I do for you?" he asked, his voice trembling like a leaf caught in a storm. Poirot stepped inside, closing the door with a soft click. "Monsieur Billings, I believe you have information pertinent to my investigation, specifically regarding the logbook page that was forged." Billings' eyes widened, and he stumbled back a step. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered. But his hands betrayed him, fidgeting with the edge of his desk. Poirot fixed him with a piercing gaze, his moustache twitching slightly. "Come now, monsieur. The handwriting on the forged page is yours, is it not? And the ink, freshly applied, betrays its recent creation. You cannot deny the evidence of your own hand." Billings slumped into his chair, his shoulders sagging as if the weight of the world had settled upon them. "I had no choice," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the hum of the ship's engines. "They threatened to expose my past, a mistake I made years ago, a foolish indiscretion. I couldn't let it ruin me." "Who threatened you?" Poirot demanded, his tone polite yet unyielding. "I don't know their name," Billings replied, his eyes darting to the floor. "They left notes, signed with a symbol, a crest, I think." Poirot leaned forward, his curiosity piqued. "Describe this crest." "It was a lion rampant, with a sword," Billings said, swallowing hard. "I didn't recognize it." "To alter the logbook entries to implicate Mr. Harrow and Sir Reginald," Billings confessed, his words tumbling out in a rush. "I tore out the original page and hid it, but then the whole logbook was stolen. I swear that's all I know." "Thank you, Monsieur Billings," Poirot said, his voice softening slightly. "Your cooperation is noted. Now I must search your quarters for any further evidence." Billings nodded meekly, and Poirot wasted no time. He proceeded to the purser's small cabin, a cramped space cluttered with papers and personal effects. After a meticulous search, Poirot's nimble fingers uncovered a crumpled note hidden beneath a stack of ledgers. It read, "Forge the entries as instructed, or your secret will be revealed. L." At the bottom, the symbol matched Billings' description. A lion, rampant with a sword. Poirot pocketed the note, his thoughts swirling. As Poirot stepped out of Billings' cabin, he nearly collided with Thomas Wilkins, the stowaway, who looked anxious, his brow furrowed with worry. "Monsieur Poirot, I need to speak with you," Wilkins said urgently. "Very well," Poirot replied, gesturing toward the deck. "Let us find a quiet place." They retreated to a secluded corner near the lifeboats, where the sound of waves lapping against the hull provided a soothing backdrop. Wilkins took a deep breath and began, "I was hired by Sir Reginald to investigate Lady Vanessa. He suspected her of infidelity and wanted evidence to use against her." Poirot's interest sharpened, his eyes glinting in the dim light. "And what did you find?" "On the night of the murder, I saw a figure in a cloak leaving the cabin area around midnight," Wilkins said. "They dropped something, a glove. I picked it up." He reached into his pocket and produced a delicate glove, its fine fabric embroidered with the initials E.F. "Lady Eleanor's," Poirot murmured, turning the glove over in his hands. "But why would she leave it there?" "I think someone is trying to frame her," Wilkins suggested. "I saw Lady Eleanor in the lounge at that time, playing cards with Mrs. Hartley. It couldn't have been her." Poirot nodded thoughtfully. "Thank you, Monsieur Wilkins. This is most helpful." Determined to clarify this new twist, Poirot sought out Lady Eleanor in the lounge. She sat alone, sipping tea, her composure restored after her earlier outburst. "Madame Fairfax," Poirot began, bowing slightly, "I must ask, did you lose a glove recently?" Lady Eleanor frowned, setting her cup down with a delicate clink. "Yes, I noticed one missing yesterday. Why do you ask?" Poirot showed her the glove. "This was found near the crime scene, but I believe it was planted to incriminate you." Her eyes widened, and she pressed a hand to her chest. "Someone stole my glove to frame me? But who?" "That is what I intend to find out," Poirot said, his tone reassuring yet firm. "Tell me, do you recognize this crest?" He produced the blackmail note and pointed to the symbol. Lady Eleanor's face paled. "That's the Worthington family crest. Sir Reginald wears it on his ring." Poirot's suspicions crystallized, the pieces of the puzzle snapping into place. "Merci, madame. You have been most cooperative." As he left the lounge, Poirot's mind whirred with activity. The killer was a master of manipulation, coercing Billings to forge the logbook, planting Lady Eleanor's glove to mislead, and now using Sir Reginald's crest as a signature. But why implicate Sir Reginald? Was it a clever ruse to deflect suspicion, or was Sir Reginald himself the architect of this deadly scheme? Poirot knew he was close to the truth. The threads of the mystery were coming together, weaving a tapestry that would soon reveal the murderer's identity. Yet one final piece eluded him, a shard of evidence to confirm his growing certainty. With renewed determination, Poirot set off to confront Sir Reginald, the man whose crest had appeared in the blackmail note. The game was nearly over, and Hercule Poirot was ready to make his move. Chapter 11. The Unveiling. The grand lounge of the SS Atlantica glowed with an uneasy splendor. Crystal chandeliers twinkled above, casting light across velvet-draped walls, while beyond the tall windows, the Atlantic churned under a slate-grey sky, reflecting the tension within. Hercule Poirot stood at the center of the room, his small stature belied by an air of quiet command. Around him, the suspects sat in a semicircle of plush armchairs, their faces a gallery of emotions: apprehension, curiosity, defiance. Captain Hargrove stood near the entrance, arms crossed, his stern eyes fixed on the group. Sir Reginald Worthington, Lady Eleanor Fairfax, Clarence Harrow, Mr. Billings, Thomas Wilkins, and a few other passengers filled the seats, their body language revealing their states of mind. Sir Reginald's stiff posture, Lady Eleanor's restless hands, Harrow's feigned nonchalance. Poirot smoothed his impeccable moustache and began, his voice steady and precise. "Mes amis, we are here to unveil a murderer. The death of Lady Vanessa Worthington was no random act. It was a crime of intent, and the culprit is among us." Murmurs rippled through the room, quickly hushed as Poirot raised a hand. "To uncover the truth, we must examine the clues, for they betray the killer's hand." He paced deliberately, his polished shoes clicking on the parquet floor. "First, the letter found in Lady Vanessa's stateroom. Pay what you owe, or the world will know your shame. You can't hide forever." At first, it appeared as a threat against her. But no. It was her own draft, written in her hand, intended for Monsieur Harrow. She sought to warn him, expose their affair or pay her price. Poirot's keen eyes swept the room, lingering on Sir Reginald, whose jaw tightened. Next, the photograph of Lady Vanessa with a man in a Paris café. The man's face was hidden, but a lion's head cufflink shone on his sleeve, a match to Monsieur Harrow's own. He pivoted to another clue. The footprint near the stateroom door, too small for a man, too large for Lady Vanessa, hinted at a woman's heel. Yet it was a distraction, perhaps left by a crew member or placed by the killer to deceive. Poirot gestured toward the open porthole. The porthole, ajar on a chilly night, suggested an intruder, or a need to cool the room after a struggle, another misdirection. His gaze settled on Lady Eleanor. The blood-stained handkerchief bearing Madame Fairfax's initials was a cunning plant. But whose blood? That of Monsieur Harrow. Harrow tensed as Poirot turned to him. "You cut yourself in the struggle with Lady Vanessa, monsieur. The bandage on your hand proves it. The blood on the handkerchief is yours, used to frame Madame Fairfax." Lady Eleanor gasped. "But how did he get my handkerchief?" Poirot's lips curved slightly. "You dropped it in the lounge, madame, and Monsieur Harrow claimed it, later staining it with his blood to shift suspicion." Harrow's composure faltered, his fists tightening. "This is absurd." "Is it?" Poirot pressed. "Consider the cigarette case, engraved C.H. and to my beloved A from V. Found near the lifeboats, it tied you to the scene. But who is A? Not your initial, Monsieur Harrow." Poirot's eyes sparkled with insight. The love letters signed A confounded me until Thomas Wilkins, the stowaway, recalled Lady Vanessa calling her lover my dear amour, French for love. Thus, A was her pet name for you, Monsieur Harrow, her amour. She hid those letters in the library, a place she deemed safe from her husband's prying eyes, tucked among forgotten volumes. The room grew still, the weight of revelation settling over them. Harrow's face paled. Poirot pressed on. The forged logbook page implicating you and Sir Reginald was your desperate ploy. You forced Mr. Billings to alter it using a blackmail note stamped with Sir Reginald's crest. How did you acquire it? Simple. You stole Sir Reginald's signet ring from his cabin, using it to seal your forgery, and when the original logbook threatened to expose your movements, you stole it to cover your tracks. He drew the crumpled blackmail note from his pocket. This note, signed with the crest and L, aimed to confuse us. But it was your work, Monsieur Harrow. Captain Hargrove stepped forward. Harrow, is this true? Harrow sprang up, voice trembling with fury. No! I loved her. I'd never hurt her. Then explain the glove, Poirot countered. Planted near the scene to incriminate Lady Eleanor like the handkerchief, and the threatening note, you can't hide forever, was not her draft alone. You sent her a final warning, fearing her threat to expose you. The voices Madame Fairfax heard that night were yours and Vanessa's, arguing before the murder. In panic, you silenced her. Harrow's resolve shattered. It was an accident, he rasped. She'd ruin me. My business, my life. I tried to stop her, but she fought, and I didn't mean to. He sank back, sobbing, as Captain Hargrove signaled his officers. Take him away. As Harrow was escorted out, Poirot faced the group, his tone solemn. Greed and fear fueled this tragedy, mes amis, but justice has prevailed. Sir Reginald rose, his voice thick. Thank you, Poirot. I suspected, but I couldn't believe it. Poirot bowed his head. The heart resists what the mind discerns, monsieur. Yet truth endures. The passengers drifted away, whispering, as Poirot lingered by the window. The sea had calmed. The storm subsided. Another mystery unraveled, order restored by his little grey cells. With a twirl of his moustache and the quiet confidence of genius, Hercule Poirot lays bare the truth, restoring harmony to the SS Atlantica. The puzzle is complete, the culprit unmasked, and order prevails once more, all thanks to the keen observation of one extraordinary mind. We trust you've savoured this elegant dance of deduction. If you'd like to support Nocturnal Tales and delve deeper into such mysteries, consider joining our YouTube membership program for exclusive content, or visit our Buy Me a Coffee page, link in the description. Thank you for listening. Until we meet again, keep your eyes sharp and your wits sharper still.
Thank you for stopping by and listening. If there is a favorite novel by Agatha Christie you would like to hear in this channel, please comment below. We will do our best to upload your favorite novel to our channel. Also, please subscribe, like, and check the notifications bell for upcoming videos. We appreciate you.